Hey guys, welcome to another Kickster review. So today I'm going to be reviewing the recent Marvel release of the film The Marvels starring Brie Larson. I'm going to be completely honest, going into this film I had the lowest of low expectations imaginable. I was expecting it to be just a terrible piece of crap that just would not make any sense and would just be completely like woke and all these sorts of rubbish things that they would throw into it. So yeah, I'm just going to give you what my clear biased state of mind was going into the film before I dive into my actual thoughts. Starting off with what I liked, so believe it or not, Captain Marvel herself, played by Brie Larson, was kind of likable in this film. I mean, not great by any means, not even really good, but compared to her first performance in the first Captain Marvel film, this is light years ahead in terms of likability, in terms of even relatability. Like she's still OP'd as hell, and like she's way too strong, and she's got all these sorts of issues that come with just her very existence in terms of why she couldn't solve that problem, solve this, beat that bad guy, blah, blah, blah. All sorts of issues you can name in terms of just her, like what her character represents. But just from a performance standpoint, I can't believe I'm saying this, but she was more likable this time. Some nice smiles in there, some positive energy, some laughs. Like it was nice to see. A pleasant surprise because I was going in expecting her to be full bitch mode like she was in the first one. And yeah, that just wasn't the case here. I'll also speak a bit about the other two leads, namely Monica Rambeau and Miss Marvel. I thought that the trio that they formed, the Marvels, were actually like kind of pleasant. Like they were nice. They had some nice chemistry at times. They had some fun aspects to them as well. Yeah. Problems, again, there were problems galore with all of their characters being way too powerful, using powers at the wrong times, using them when they shouldn't, and like all sorts of inconsistencies all over the place. But still, just from a performance standpoint, I'm being clear here, I found there was some nice chemistry between the three of them, and I didn't find myself loathing them being on the screen. In fact, I felt there was some heart and some joy to be found at times, which was a pleasant surprise. Another positive for me about this film was that it seemed like that there was more of a focus with this film to convey a sense of energy and optimism and fun kind of nature with this film. It wasn't kind of adamant about being overly serious or just being stoic like the first Captain Marvel was, and essentially boring even. This one was kind of willing to like kind of live in its own fun and absurdity and just kind of enjoy itself a bit more, have a bit more breathing space, just kind of for fans to just absorb it and not so much get like, not focus too much on nitty gritty details, but just, because if you do that, there's so many issues with this film. But just on the surface level, if you're going in as a surface level consumer, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by just how kind of fun and lighthearted this film is at times. And this is a Marvel film, so it'd be remiss of me to not kind of mention or grade its action scenes. Marvel films are kind of known for having like a gimmick within each of their own films, within their action scenes. The gimmick of this film is essentially that is critical to the story as well, in that the three main characters are all swapping powers each time that they use their powers. I thought this is an interesting concept. This will kind of delve into the things I disliked about the film as well, but I'll have to mention it here, is that it did work at times when they were consistent with it, but then there was plenty of other times where they didn't keep it up and they weren't consistent, when clearly they should have swapped powers by using it and they didn't, just to suit the story, whatever they wanted to push in that moment. So yeah, look, it's a fun and interesting idea, but ultimately the execution was hit and miss at best. If you've been watching to this far, you're probably thinking that I'm giving this film like an overall positive review. Well, hold your horses, because here comes the dislikes. There's a long list here, and they're not in any particular order of what's worst or the biggest dislike to the least or whatever, but I'm going to say the one that annoyed me the most, and that was Nick Fury. My God, they destroyed his character in this film. Like, I haven't seen Secret Invasion. I heard they did some bad things to his character in that film, but just from what I've seen here, they turned him into a joke, like literally a joke who is making lighthearted jokes in serious situations. Nick Fury is meant to be the most serious man in the room at all times. He takes nothing for granted, no jokes. He's all very paranoid about everything. We've seen this in previous Captain America and Avengers films, the lengths that he's willing to go to protect his people or the world or whatever. This film, he's just making jokes all over the place. He's spending more time playing with cats than anything else. Like, I mean, I don't know what the hell they're thinking doing this. I mean, I get it, they're trying to target this film more to a female audience, but you got to keep your characters consistent. Like, I don't care who's your audience within a shared universe. This was not Nick Fury. This was an imposter, 100%. Samuel L. Jackson, I don't know, he must be getting a massive paycheck to act like this, because all dignity is lost as far as I'm concerned. I don't know how you repair his character from here, but my God, like, yeah, Nick Fury was just an abomination. The next thing that I really disliked was the main villain, Dar-Benn. You know, no superhero film is great without a great villain, and my gosh, does she fall short. Like, she is as generic and cookie cutter as it gets. She's not intimidating in the slightest bit. The acting I found was just even lacking. Like, I don't know who the actress is, but I'm sure she can be a great actress in a different role, different direction, but just wasn't happening here. Yeah, so as far as this film goes, you know, there's nothing to find of interest with this villain whatsoever. Yeah, I have no compliment to make about her. Every time she was on screen, I felt like things came down a few notches. And, you know, this film really couldn't afford to do that. I felt like it was only at an average at best throughout. So to come off down from average was really suffering for this film. And so, yeah, the villain was a huge disappointment. I've spoken about characters so far in terms of what I've disliked, but here's what I mainly disliked about the story of this film. There is a whole story missing within this film. They have flashbacks and references to moments of a film that does not exist. This film is almost like it's Captain America 3, the way it references events that never happened. You know, we know what happened in Captain Marvel 1. We know she was in Endgame. We haven't really seen her since, but there's referencing events, namely with the Kree, that just have not happened, and they're making that to be the main driver of the story in this one, the ramifications of that in this one. And it's like, whoa, like, hold your horses. Like, you can't skip that. Like, you can't make us invest in something that we haven't seen, so we have no experience of. So there's a whole movie here missing. I don't know what they were thinking, if this was just some sort of editing job that they've cut together at the last second. I heard this film went through editing hell and reshoot after reshoot, but my gosh, like, there's a whole film missing. I don't know how else to put it. Another dislike was this scene on the planet Aledna, which is essentially a planet that sings to communicate. So they don't talk, they sing their words. And there's a whole song and dance sequence which feels like 10 or so minutes of this film. And my gosh, like, it's the most Disney thing you'll ever see. And as someone who like usually loves Disney stuff, I was like cringing at, like, whoa, this is way too far. They've jumped the shark completely. And that's saying a lot, because they jump the shark a lot in the MCU these days. But yeah, like that scene just felt like way out of place. And when I heard that there was a song and dance scene in this film before going into the film, I was thinking, oh, okay, that is maybe something fun or cool could come of that. No, it was bad. And not only was it bad, but it literally has no bearing on the story whatsoever. The fact that the people sing does not make any difference to the story or to the events that come out of that afterwards. So yeah, like, that whole scene was a waste of time and really cringe. I want to now talk a little bit about Miss Marvel, because I should have mentioned earlier that she is actually probably the best performance or character of the film but the reason I didn't want to mention that is because she's also kind of the worst part, in that they overdo her character way too much. She's there for the comic relief. She's meant to be the funny one out of the three, but they just overdo it with lame joke after lame joke. You know how it goes these days with MCU films, and this one definitely continued that trend of just the undercutting every serious moment with the lame joke. And yeah, like, that was her purpose in the day. Again, I think the actress is quite good in her role as Miss Marvel when she's being Miss Marvel and just acting in general. But yeah, the way that the story served her really, they just overdid it completely with her character. And coming back to what I mentioned earlier about the power swapping and how I liked that as a concept, but I mentioned, I disliked it because I felt it created too many inconsistencies throughout the whole film, where there were so many times where the swap should have occurred and it didn't, or it did occur when it shouldn't have. Like, it just, in so many instances, it was all over the place. But yeah, like, so coming into that, there's even a point at the end of this film, and this was crazy, where Miss Marvel it's made clear throughout this whole film that she needs her bangles to use her powers, and she literally doesn't have the bangles at the end of the film, and yet she uses her powers. So like, they're so inconsistent. They just do not know how to just like keep it going. And even that, like, Monica gets lost in another multiverse universe, and Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel's trying to save her, flying towards her. She can literally fly at the speed of light, and yet she can't get to her in time to pull her out of that multiverse. Anyways, they try to explain her away with like, oh, she has to be on that side. It's really, really stupid and really poorly written stuff. So yeah, that ending was really bad in my opinion. And even then, at the end, they just randomly show up with the bangles again, Carol and Miss Marvel. Like, how did they get them again? Like, it just jumps back into, there's editing problems galore in this film. And yeah, I think it's really summed up by this whole power swapping dynamic that they introduced in the film. So for my overall thoughts, the best compliment I can give this film is that it was, quote, better than my extremely low expectations. So as I said, I was going in thinking I was really going to hate this film. And part of me these days, I'm not going to lie, kind of wants to hate them because I hate what they're doing with the MCU in overall. So I've just got to admit my own biases, but you know, I try to be as objective as I can once I'm in that seat watching what's in front of me. And as I said, there were aspects that I enjoyed that I could just switch off my brain to, because you really have to switch off with this one. And because I was able to do that, I was able to kind of enjoy aspects of it. And so my advice to you, anyone who hasn't seen the film, if you're considering watching it or if you're not, what I would say is go in, do not expect anything in the way of story, do not expect anything to make much sense. Just switch off your brain, just go in thinking, okay, I'm up for some dumb fun, I'm about to experience some dumb fun now, and you might be happy with what you see. I think that's the best like kind of encapsulation I can give of the entire film. So yeah, anyways guys, that's my overall thoughts on the Marvels. What did you guys think of the film? If you've seen it, I'd love to hear all your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, it really helps, and especially a subscribe of my channel if you're enjoying my content. I would really appreciate it. So yeah, thanks guys, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.